Good morning, everyone. My name is Lois A. Herman. I'm the Managing Director of One Run, the Women's UN Report Network, and we and Women's Federation for World Peace International are very happy to host this panel on Korea Safe Space for Women in the DMZ. In the spirit of UN Security Council Resolution 1325, this event and the project that we highlight engage actors and stakeholders in the visioning of a new future in and across the demilitarized zone of Korea through the creation of a physical and virtual space to bring together women of South Korea and North Korea and women of all ages and youth working towards peace and shared prosperity in Korea and around the world. I think we would all agree that the tensions in today's world are significant. And this is a model, a prototype of women and men leading the way to peace in the DMZ. We hope to have through development a landscape for Korean women from all regions to meet, to talk, to share. It would be an international hub for women, peace, and the environment. Building on events of this theme are going to be presented today by some very distinguished speakers. And we have promoted this project for several years, even heard from a special rapporteur in Geneva. We believe it will happen. There was a women's march on the DMZ several years ago, and there's a film, but that's just the beginning. This is a concept that is achievable. And today we are going to be catalysts to tell you about it and to learn ways we can proceed. And I'd like to introduce Carolyn Hansen, my colleague, who is the president of the UN Commission on the Status of Women in Geneva, the UN committee. And she has really been the point person in bringing all of you together, and she will moderate this panel. But I can tell you truly that One Run is on this program from the beginning, and we will continue to work with you.
Thank you, Lois. Thank you. It brings back memories of when we first began this idea at the Human Rights Council, 2017, our first of four events that we had at the Human Rights Council, trying to promote this idea. I will take the prerogative just to say a few words at the beginning and also make the connection to Beijing, because, we are here in New York. Also, Lois I believe, just left here. Dr. Song was here, and also Dr. Lee, and we. So Beijing, for those maybe on the call who are not so familiar with this, in 1995 there was a Beijing Platform for Action that was agreed upon, which included a plan of action with 12 critical areas of focus. And the important point for us is that this, even though this Commission on the Status of Women is an intergovernmental body, actually this was a moment in history where really civil society was very, very engaged. And we feel equally like governments, and maybe even more so sometimes, like this is our commitment to partnership to really solve these different areas, these 12 critical areas, which include not only solutions, but actually it's very much it's still 30 years later, it's still a very forward-looking agenda. And connecting that to Korea, what we see, of course, in Korea concerning peace, by the way, Women's Federation, the NGO that I represent, as the director of the UN offices, Um, we have our roots in Korea. Our home office is in Korea. So we're very close to this and have been engaged, at the border and across the border with different efforts, which I'm sure you'll hear from some of our speakers about this later. But the point is that we as civil society, we cannot just wait for the governments to trust each other enough to agree to peace. We have to proactively do whatever efforts we can to really push this and to prepare the foundations, even as Lois was saying. And I think for us, the idea of peace and reconciliation flows the most smoothly when it's through development. That is development where we're working together for mutual benefit of one another. And bit by bit, we are reconciling and we are building peace without the agony of, even having the peace agreement, which could be put on paper later, actually. So if I also may, just before I introduce our first speaker, I just wanted to say a word. Lois, if you don't mind, I just wanted to say a little bit more about our history for those who don't know. And so back in the year 2000, I think this also might be mentioned again, 2000, there was a speech made at the turn of the millennium by the Women's Federation founder. And it was developing the idea of peace zones, which of course is not a new idea, but the idea of putting those peace zones in the middle, in the space, in the territory between two areas of conflict. Voila, the DMZ. And we also had in 2014, that event, in the year 2009, we held a large event with the support of UNIDIR in Geneva. And again, this idea was proposed, and including the element of creating not only a peace zone, but actually housing or hosting a UN office, even a major, even the idea of going from having maybe the three main UN offices or four main UN offices to having a fifth that would be in that region, which actually has no kind of seat such as that in such a major, important, populous area. And then again, this was announced then at this major event. And then again, we had in 2014, which again, building on this idea of establishing a UN headquarters at the DMZ, peace on the Korean Peninsula. And we even had speakers that came from Korea. We had speakers, including the vice governor of Gyeonggi province, which is right there at the DMZ, also Paju City, one of the officials there. We had the Council of Europe, we had the Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights, parliamentarians, a retired Swiss general who actually was stationed at the DMZ, and even the BBC correspondent, actually. So just to say, we have been trying for a long time, kind of pushing this idea for the initiative that Lois mentioned, but this cannot actually be done. What definitely can't be done in Geneva, but it can't even be done from Geneva, because what we need to reach is actually the governments. We need to speak to the governments in a way that they would trust this idea that building from the bottom up is not, would actually lead to a place that they would very much want to be. And so the idea is to begin with begin with smaller projects, meeting north and south at or near the DMZ. Beginning, we spoke about women, but also maybe bringing youth together, and then getting more and more, speaking more and more about this. We reached out to experts in different fields, like in the field of design, architecture, and also internet, metaverse design and development. And more amazing ideas began coming in from women. And so we have so many good ideas, but now we really are sort of at the brink of finding that moment in history where we can actually take the step to really start building in that area. And we are sure that the result will be will be really a very, very valuable contribution to peace. And maybe I'll close with just one small point that Lois had mentioned. And during the process of developing these four different events at the Human Rights Council, having themes: Korea women, South and North, peace, reconciliation, rights, and development. That was kind of the theme that we used, changing it a little bit each time. But we did at the very beginning get in touch with the special rapporteur on North Korea, Mr. Thomas Oyeya Quintana, who had this task to try to, work with the North Korean government and get into North Korea, and just met with obstacles every time, which is understandable, as he was coming looking for, maybe they were looking for the dark side, or the side of the human rights critique, maybe, rather than human rights as promotion or development. And so I just want to read one short quote from what he said about this project that we are working on, this project of really planning for peace at the DMZ through the resource of women and youth. And he said, "When I hear that women from the South and their networks globally have been reaching out to women in the North, investing in reconciliation, dialogue, cultural and humanitarian projects that have built bridges of trust, I feel encouraged about the future of the Korean Peninsula, and launching a concrete proposal of establishing in or near the DMZ a peace building or a partnership meeting place for women. I feel with that hopeful about prospects for future peace." So with that, I would like to move on to our first speaker today, and that is Dr. Song-Ho Lee, we are so really grateful to be able to welcome him, a true expert who is working on this exact topic and on the ground, in place in Korea, actually. So he is the president of the DMZ Forum, which is a nonprofit dedicated to turning the DMZ into a UN peace zone, a sanctuary for nature, peace, healing, and education, while working to preserve its unique ecological and cultural heritage. He has an extensive academic background. He taught graduate classes at NYU School of Public Service, also training of official delegations from various foreign governments. Dr. Lee, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Carolyn Hanshin, for inviting me to this very timely and important conference. And also, I thank you, Dr. Hwa-Jin Song, for inviting me to this very important seminar. So I'll move on to my PowerPoint screen. Okay, so the focus of today's my remark is the UN peace zone as an healing linchpin. So here beyond Beijing, women and youth create peace space on Korea's DMZ. So peace space, here's peace zone I'd like to introduce. So first of all, I'd like to focus on North Korean forest, devastation, because in order to address Korean DMZ, as you know, that Korean DMZ was created by Korean War from North Korea and the UN side. Still, there's a military tension between North Korea, especially United States Army is controlling the Korean DMZ. So as far as I know, without reconciliation between North Korea and the US, nothing can be done within the DMZ and beyond North Korea, of course. So I'd like to find clues from ecological sense of North Korea. So it's seamlessly interconnected but divided into half, as you know, after the Korean War. So, but it causes many problems, not just ecological, but political, military, economic, every way. So, but first, ecological devastation of North Korean hills and mountains I visited a decade ago, still same problems, especially Anju, Pyeongan-namdo is really bad situation in deforestation rate near 50%, the highest. So it causes chronic flooding. Anju City, as you see, this is Anju Public Library here, submerged, housing and buses still going on. So I went to North Korea with a group of DMZ Forum in Pyongyang, here Pyongyang Central Tree Nursery Farm to grow tree saplings first, to plant trees. And then Chairman Kim Jong-un welcomed our initiative at the time, and he called himself a central commander of tree planting war and called these tree saplings as bullets, very aggressive. So this is the actual scene. Could you play this video from YouTube?
Yes, one moment.
This is actual tree planting work by North Korean women's group helping us together. So I'd like to show how women's can cooperate each other. Okay, so I very much hope that video could inspire to this similar thing in North Korea, especially Anju, Pyeongan-namdo, so that we can. This is very good intimate contact with the North Korean citizens. So I hope that there will be our next move. Then I'll need to share again, I guess. But the problem is that for the past decade of tree planting has not been very fruitful because of, as you may know, tree planting in the North Korean mountains, we have a problem of food production and fuel shortage in North Korea. North Korean people are generally starving. They cut the trees, and for fuel and food production, they cultivate mountain ranges. That we need to solve these problems at the same time, just like South Korea has been experiencing. I can explain more later. So we went to North Korea again. This is North Korean airplane, and shortly this is Pyongyang Airport, two international destinations, Vladivostok and Beijing. This is Kim Il-sung Square and Cultural Center and Nodong Shinmun, Nodong newspaper. And over here, the gas station in Pyongyang, and I rented a van, but gotta remember this van is made in North Korea. Most poor countries do not have own auto industry, but North Korea has a auto industry. Amazing. Why? I'll explain more later. This is a North Korean model. More than that right now. This is possible by Tongyang Group Peace Motor, 평화 자동차. This was possible by Reverend Moon, who visited North Korea in 1991. There's a huge investment in auto industry unprecedented investment done by Reverend Moon. We got to think about who is Reverend Moon, mostly considered anti-communist and, victory of a communism movement, still investing hugely with love. So think about that. So I went to Pyongyang here and moved to Wonsan and DMZ, and road condition is very, very bad. So I will just pass. And then I stopped over here in the mountain, Mashingnyang mountain, where Mashingnyang Hotel and ski resort is also helped by Reverend Moon's Dongyang group, I heard. And I moved from here, mountain Mashingnyang, to Wonsan, that President Trump, frequently mentioned, developing condo and, tourist resort. That place, Wonsan Beach Resort, I visited Wonsan Beach, and I want to remember this one's called Songdo 1, was once considered potential mass wedding site in 1992 after Reverend Moon's visit, but did not happen. And then I moved to over here, Anbyeon rice field, huge rice field. We have a project helping local farmers to produce more crops by providing them with tractors and other farm equipment. In return, we asked them to leave some crops after harvesting in the fall for these migratory birds from DMZ to this area before flying into Siberia. They can be fed enough. So this was a wonderful project, ecological and agricultural sense. And we drove to Kosan area. Here is a Kosan apple farm. Immense, this size. I first saw it. It looks like a national cemetery, but it is an apple farm. Amazing, huge apple farm. We moved to Sepodungpan. Here is a mountain range, huge mountain range we help, grow the potato. So then we move to the DMZ and think about what we can do, because without reconciliation between North and South Korea, especially North Korea and the US, nothing can be done. From my experience of 30 years of wide-ranging efforts to getting support from international, from North and South Korea. Even North Korea wanted to that, but US view is very important. And that's why, I try to summarize what we have been doing very quickly. So DMZ here, and as you know, the more than 14,000 North Korean naturalists, it's really real threat within hours. So can be a sea of fire. So that's not just propaganda. It can be possible. And southern half is controlled by U.S. Army like this. But the problem is here is more than 2 million landmines still there. Gotta remember that. So U.S. Army is controlling. Total devastation after the Korean War, 3 years. But nature reclaimed itself, as you know in various sources. Accidental paradise of Korean DMZ without human intervention, as you know. So we organized DMZ Forum 1997 in New York to turn the Korean DMZ UN peace zone, peace space for nature and peace sanctuary for healing in education. So we did some scientific inquiry, although it's limited, planning and some public awareness through many conferences and seminars. And 3 years later, I found a wonderful speech by Reverend Sun Myung-moon at the UN. As you know, the entire DMZ should be changed to UN peace zone, making exhibition halls, museums, and educational sites and peace park. But I gotta emphasize Dr. Hak Jahan's speech again. In 2015, she specifically pronounced that transforming the Korean DMZ into a world peace park, along with the 5th UN office. Amazing confirmation of what we should do. And the speech in relation to great epic of the chosen Korean people is in relation to reconciliation of Korean Peninsula through DMZ Peace Park. So I did a similar lecture on this topic of chosen Korean people here, PA Los Angeles. You might want to visit the sites. And you got to remember Pastor Paula White's speech in a similar context of chosen Korean people of a great epic. And the DMZ Forum board members, I tried to organize top diplomats, renowned scientists, and public policy experts in the last 30 years. And this report by UNEP, Transfrontier Reserves for Peace and Nature, a contribution to human security, I have to emphasize that inspired me to form the DMZ Forum in 1997. So this is a wonderful report, and current board members of the DMZ Forum from diverse expertise still working on very well. And public awareness of a national newspaper of South Korea and Wall Street Journal and Japanese Asahi. And look at this title, Wall Street Journal, Bitter No Man's Land. Korea's DMZ considers a haven for rare animals, inspired many people worldwide. And CNN reported similar, sense. And nature reclaimed itself, regenerated itself. There's more than 5,000 species and many endangered ones. And we captured.
Dr. Lee, maybe I have to, maybe you
Yeah.
have to come to the end, as much as it's very, very great, amazing information you're giving us.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe you can just wrap, you just wrap up.
Okay, I'll try. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one is a live picture. So I'll try to. So what's the point? Is the DMZ is the area we need to reconcile between North and South Korea first. So in that regard, regardless of this support from UN, UNEP, and many famous supporters, important thing is the U.S. government, how to persuade the U.S. government control the southern half of the Korean DMZ. So we propose this kind of cultural, religious healing and education based on Korean cultures or Hallyu of Korean founding principles. And then again, we're going to emphasize the great epic of the chosen Korean people's kind of philosophical tradition, and these things can be done with this Korean DMZ as a healing linchpin for harmonious interdependence of North and South Korea. So it is important to have a 공생, interdependence between North and South Korea, not the abrupt absorption of the other parties. Why? Because we need soft power solution rather than hard power. So by making peace zone, then we can make South Korean kind of peace zone as a comprehensive protective sanctuary, providing unwavering protection and security for South Korean people. And of course, the Beijing's threat that many, can be contained, this kind of, reconciliation between the two Koreas. So again, this peace zone, UN peace zone, with a healing and education zone, especially women and youth, can do a lot of things. Can do first trip planning in North Korea, as well as tourism that we can do even under UN sanctions we can do. So I very much hope that the reconciliation is the way to go, and based on power of women and youth, I hope that I can discuss more in that regard. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Lee. Wow, it's amazing to me that how great minds who are seeking similar things find each other and can begin to work together. Actually, it's to hear that you have been, like, since 1997, you actually created the DMZ Forum. So you have been. Thank you for your service to peace, and we will have time later. I hope that we can have some questions from the audience. You can explain even more. So thank you. And our next speaker is who is not with us. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us on the call, but she has taken time to prepare a presentation for us, a recorded presentation for us. Her name is Dr. Anna Gristing Solder. She is based in Geneva. We are friends and colleagues. We worked together on the Geneva Peace Week, 2 years, presenting these ideas to a new kind of network of people. She is an architect, an urbanist, a musician, a quite amazing musician. Her founding organization, the organization that she founded that especially deals with this area of work it's called Border Meetings. But I saw recently she added Desert Bridges and Blue Futures. So she is expanding her work. She has designed peace areas for different governments around the world. Doctor of Design, Harvard University, Senior Fellow, Institute of Environmental Diplomacy and Security, the University of Vermont, and also working with the University of Geneva. So I think, Sarah, you will show the video.
Yes, thank you. Just one moment while I launch the video.
Great pleasure to present the Korea DMZ Peace Incubator, Seeding the Future. I apologize for not being with you in this session. This interactive project seeks to engage actors and stakeholders in the visioning of a new future in the demilitarized zone of Korea through the creation of a peace zone where women from North and South Korea can meet and interact with women from all over the world. It aims to gather experts in environmental peace building, specialists on the natural features and future ecologies of the DMZ zone, cultural actors and peace activists with women and youth. The goal is to go beyond the political, physical and mental barriers to co-create a landscape and infrastructure for Korean women, as well as an international hub for women, peace and the environment. The objective is to gather solutions, ideas and visions for this space from local, regional and global actors, building on existing visions for the Korean DMZ and engaging the opinions and visions of North Koreans. It is not only the end goal of realizing this project with the involvement of Korean governments, but also the process of co-creating it, of sharing ideas, of engaging partners and creating grassroots conversations, all of which are significant in the process of reconciliation, of peace building, and of memory creation. It can create new ways of thinking and looking at peace, and even new ways of thinking of a future UN representation in the region. The approach is one of multi-stakeholder participative design, and to incubate the co-creative process, a number of questions are suggested to the participants to engage them to contribute their ideas and visions for the project. These relate to the types of activities, programs, designs, infrastructures and attributes of a proposed space, as well as questions related to accessibility and on ways to reach out to North Koreans. The concept behind this is to go from an ego to eco-diplomacy using cultural, scientific, environmental, citizen and digital diplomacy based on inclusive peace building and with women, peace and the environment. From human-centric laws to earth-centric laws. As Ban Ki-moon said, inclusive peace is the idea that all stakeholders in a society should have a role in defining and shaping peace, including women's groups. Wangari Maathai was the first person to win the Nobel Peace Prize, where peace was related to the environment for the Green Belt movement. So this started off as a grassroots movement and then went on to become an atlas of ecosystems and human well-being for the whole of Kenya. So we're also co-creating peace with nature, and creating these new spaces is conceived as an inclusive act of healing, co-creating and reconciliation, through which members on both sides of divided societies work together across old boundaries in a new inclusive space where the divisive past is not forgotten but surmounted. So we're also looking at earth rights, nature rights and human rights. Kum Suk-kang, the former Minister of Justice of Korea and Executive Director of People for Earth Korea, says the Korean demilitarized zone could be granted rights, just as rivers, mountains, and forests have been granted legal rights. With People for Earth Korea, we are working to foster ecozoic cultures based on Earth jurisprudence. This is a philosophy of law and human governments that is based on the fact that humans are only one part of a wider community of beings, and that the welfare of each member of that community is dependent on the welfare of the Earth as a whole. Here we can see the endangered species and endemic species that have been identified by scientists in the demilitarized zone. The white-naped crane, red-crowned crane, Siberian deer, Korean goral, leopard cat, yellow-throated marten. So these are all species that need to be considered in the future planning of the DMZ. Looking at architecture, urbanism, and landscape, this is an image of a workshop, a conference with Koreans and international people discussing the future of the DMZ as a peace park. And making reference to other examples around the world, this is the Green Line buffer zone in Nicosia, looking at all the different scales that we need to work at, from the small parcels of the divided city to the whole landscape of the buffer zone, and proposing different scenarios along this buffer zone. Transforming the military infrastructures into nature observation structures. Some examples of designs we've done with our students. This is a riparian area in the buffer zone that we are restoring, regenerating. The home of cooperation in the buffer zone where both communities can meet. So this can be a model for the space that we are seeking to design. It's inside the buffer zone, supported by several embassies and NGOs. So there are already precedents. Women have met across the in the DMZ, across the DMZ, with women from North Korea. So we are also building on these initiatives. There is also a Swiss angle, as the Swiss armed forces are present in the DMZ and have a space there. So we can also reach out to the neutrality of the Swiss to help construct this, and also look at the existing buildings for a future reuse. This is our former president, Micheline Camiret, who stepped across the border of the DMZ. So also building on the women who have worked on this question. We also have the question of sacred sites, the Mount Gyeomgang-sang, Diamond Mountain, where the meeting between North and South Korean women was hosted by Women's Federation for World Peace. So looking at integrating the idea of the sacred and the sacred sites, and also this relation to nature that we find in Korean shamanism, the role of women in the Korean shamanism, how to reconnect to nature. And of course, youth, women, and NGOs must have a role in this. We've worked previously with the Mirai Project, who are looking at the question of bringing together women from North and South Korea and youth, and also the importance of NGOs in creating a future peace park. And as we see, civil society is increasingly important in all the transformations happening around the world. It's also about biodiversity conservation and environmental peace building, looking at nature and culture. Here we see the cranes, and also how in shamanic culture they're transformed into the crane dance. They are migratory species that nest in the DMZ, and there's already a project in North Korea which we could connect with. So we're talking about environmental diplomacy, and this is the crane project in North Korea that could also be a model for our work. So it's also about sharing what remains common, which is the Chuseok festival in North and South Korea that is still celebrated. So we can also build on these celebrations. And we're looking also at Korean cosmetics and traditional plants, that beauty could be a way of bringing women together. And working with ethnobotany. This was presented to Clarence France, and they were very interested in this idea. So that this could be a way of bringing women, culture, and peace together. We also have the arts, different art projects, and creating social spaces and businesses, working with the landscape, and also finding places where this space could be accessible. So maybe locating near to the railway stations. There's also been this idea of a UN office. So this next UN office could be located in and around the DMZ, and the Women's Space for Peace and Environment could be a seed. So it would be a new UN office which would be focused on women, environment, youth, and peace. So the Future Assembly is about saying, how do we live together, but not just with, it's more going beyond the Anthropocene and looking at all the species and living beings and entities that are in our ecosystems to create our new future. So the meta zone, the meta space, is also an area where we can collaborate and create these designs. This was already used by the Pyeongchang Peace Forum, which I attended a few years ago. So this idea is the metaverse as a virtual space for collaboration, for designing a laboratory to design a real space in the DMZ, and for the virtual space in the metaverse. So these are just some examples of the Pyeongchang example. And finally, we have some conceptual frameworks for the DMZ in which this project for women could be inserted, looking at who are all the stakeholders that we need to bring in for this vision, from seed to garden to park, from incubator to hub, from community space to UN space for women. So, there's also a timeline, different scales that we need to work on. How do we go forward, engaging with North and South Koreans, strategic partners, key partners in Korea, common past for Korea, looking at a common past that we can use to bring North and South Korea together, and developing also these project design and tools for digital engagement. One of the examples we used was a Padlet. So we tried to gather different ideas of the program. What do we want to see in the DMZ? This is this idea of the livable frontier. Here we see these cranes dancing in the DMZ. So this idea that North and South Koreans, and we can see, the women dancing together, the shamans dancing, the cranes dancing. So we come together in this couple who dance together. Women design the DMZ. So these are just some images generated by AI, showing that we can very quickly generate images. Of course, that's not what we want to do. We want to co-create a space, an incubator, and say, what activities and programs would we like to see? What functions? What can it produce? How do we imagine this space? Scale and form? What is the most earth-friendly infrastructure we can imagine in symbiosis with ecosystem and species? How can we access it? How does it relate to the environment in the DMZ? How can it act as an incubator seed for the development of regenerative and sustainable place for women, peace and environment? And how can we engage the participation of North Koreans and North Korean women? So just a few images generated by AI. So this is not what we want to do, but just to say that, we can create images as well very quickly, but we have also a very long process and engaging with all different stakeholders. 감사합니다. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Anna Güsting. Yes, actually, we have been working together since, I think, 2020, 21. She came into this project, and it turns out, as we saw with Dr. Lee, that she had been working on a parallel kind of idea with, of course, more focus on environment than we had been doing. But we found we have a very, since then we had, as I said, we had several Geneva Peace Week presentations, which in fact, some good part of that video, that recording, was actually the work we did together in Geneva to reach out to people from all different sectors with the idea of what if we could do something in a peace zone in the DMZ. How could you imagine? What could be contributed? How could we engage North and South Korea? And I was amazed to see how many people were so enthusiastic about this. People who perhaps hadn't thought so much about, peace between North and South Korea in any kind of really practical way. So we are full of many, many great ideas. Also, there was one map that was shown in Anna's in Anna's presentation. That was something that actually I'd given to her that was brought from Korea by the government, actually, at the DMZ when they came to Geneva and spoke at our UPF Women's Federation event at the United Nations. And it was the local government who had actually designed that map with the UN complex, the Peace Park, and all these other possibilities. So we are not just speaking over the heads. We are understanding more and more that this idea is germinating and even being developed in many, many different corners. So thank you again, Anna, so much. I would like to move on to another young woman who is really an amazing artist and designer. Her name is Dr. Irina Chun. We actually met in Korea in 2023. She has an interesting, interesting heritage. She was raised in Russia. She is married to someone from Israel, and she has heritage from North Korea, actually. So the three current quite hot spots in our world right now, she has a really touch connection, to all of them. So she is dedicating her art and her creativity, her work. She is the winner of several international competitions, the German Design Award, and basically working in this technology for designing in the environment, in the metaverse, and with the underlying philosophy and motivation of really being able to improve the level and quality of life. Irina, I think you have also a video for us and maybe a few words after.
Yes, thank you very much, Caroline. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here and take part in this important project, which has a 16-year history. And how Caroline mentioned, my journey with Caroline began at the Peace Summit in Seoul in 2023, where we first met. A year later, Caroline invited me to participate in the grant application. And that's how the DMZ virtual project, platform project started to take shape. And this project holds a deep personal meaning for me. I find it important to contribute to the reunification of South and North Korea. And I was born in Sakhalin Island as part of the third generation of Koreans. As a child, I remember being shown photographs of my grandmother's family, people separated by history. They tried to return home from Sakhalin to Jeollanam-do province, but Soviet ship stopped and sent them to North Korea. I recall how my grandmother collected items for them, showing me picture of the poor living conditions, tired, thin faces. And this story stayed with me, but in recent years, I have begun to feel the true value of peace even more deeply. And in December 2022, I left Russia, and my husband is an Israeli citizen, and I was there at the very moment when 9,050 rockets struck this country.
Mm-hmm.
And when I visited my father in Seoul, I constantly heard about the tensions of the Korean Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
And when you find yourself in the middle of such events, it makes you rethink everything.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, how more than even it's important to make even a small contribution to peace, to bringing people together and fostering dialogue and understanding. And I believe that every step in this direction matters. And this project is one of those steps. And now I would like to present a video about the DMZ virtual platform. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Irina.
Thank you.
One moment while I cue up the video.
The idea of the project was initiated by the founders of the Women's Federation, Dr. Sun Myung Moon and Dr. Hak Ja Han Moon. It was further developed through a series of events at the UN in Geneva by Carolyn Hanshin as a UN Director for the Women's Federation for World Peace International, now the President of the NGO Committee on the Status of Women in Geneva, and was expanded through significant partnerships with different universities, NGOs such as WONRUN, border meetings and other stakeholders to plant the seeds for peace in the Korean DMZ. Among the professionals contributing to this initiative is Anna Grichting, a Swiss architect and musician with a Doctor of Design in Urbanism from Harvard University. For many years, Anna has been developing the DMZ Peace Garden project, bringing together some of the greatest minds of our time to create spaces for reconciliation, while preserving biodiversity and promoting sustainable, ecological development. This project is a meeting place for people with diverse stories, each woven into the collective fabric of change. Irina Chun, architect, member of the Union of Designers of Russia, has been invited to be the architect of the virtual DMZ project. Born on Sakhalin Island into a Korean family, Irina carries within her not just the history of division between North and South Korea, but a deeply personal impulse to take action. An artist and an architect, she has been a participant in the Venice Architecture Biennale, a laureate of prestigious international awards, and the author of innovative projects that push the boundaries of design and vision. Our mission is not just to contribute to the reunification of Korea, but to create a space of unity and peace for the world. The Maharishi Effect, a scientific reality. A fact recorded by scientists. During the Lebanon-Israel War, an experiment revealed that just 100 people meditating and embodying inner peace could influence a city of 1 million, reducing violence and military conflict. Presenting Virtual United Korea, a future we can enter. We are creating the DMZ Peace Zone virtual space, which can serve as a tool for establishing an environment where visitors can experience life in a unified Korea.
Hello and welcome to a journey. Please choose your arrival airport. Yes, of course, have a nice trip.
Your journey begins here. Here is your boarding pass. The visitor of the virtual platform embarks on a journey, experiencing a full sense of presence and reality. I have arrived at the airport. What a wonderful day. The taxi picks me up from the airport. We are heading toward demilitarized zone. But the taxi suddenly changed. Wow, it's so futuristic. It doesn't matter whether we choose Pyongyang or Seoul as our arrival airport. The scenario leads us to an already unified Korea of the future. But this is no longer a divided Korea. Where the DMZ once was, a symbol of war and division, now stands a peace park, a place of development and harmony. Welcome to the DMZ virtual platform, a space created to unite nations and peoples. Here, we can build the future of coexistence and co-prosperity through friendship, by sharing cultures and finding common ground. This platform is a place for innovation and the exchange of ideas. This main conference hall is capable of accommodating thousands of spectators and serves as a fully functional venue for cooperation and peace building. This exhibition space is where history, creativity, and Korean culture come to life, inviting guests to be inspired and engage in a dialogue of unity. Through exhibitions, competitions, and stories of the past, it unveils women's creative power as a bridge between tradition and the future. Here, in the virtual space, women plant the seeds of friendship, the village of peace, the house of development, the garden of remembrance. Every visitor can plant a virtual tree in memory of separated families, or a virtual flower, where each flower represents a step toward reconciliation. This is a feminine act of creation. Just as a mother heals the wounds of her child, so this garden heals Korea and the world. This is a space of a new world order, where borders do not divide, but unite, a place sought after by people from all over the world. The DMZ virtual platform can serve as an incubator for the 5th UN office, fostering new ways of thinking and reimagining the world, a precursor to a future project on the ground. This is a space of a new world order, where borders do not divide but unite, a place sought after by people from all over the world. The future begins here. It is already near, and it is united as one.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much, Irina. I think everyone is in awe of what you can do. I think before we met Irina, we had been, of course, talking a lot about this project, this idea, and even we had several opportunities to submit grant proposals. But what we realized was missing was a vision. I mean, we had visions in our minds, of a future peace, but the vision actually of what we could do in that space. And really, I think through Irina and her conceptualization and her spirit of volunteerism, she was just in love with the idea, and she wanted to dedicate her talent to helping us to look to see what might be possible. So really, thank you so much, Irina, for your contribution to this project. Now I would like to move on to our last speaker before we have an interactive session and one respondent, and that is I'd like to introduce Dr. Wajin Song. She is the Secretary General of the Women's Federation for World Peace Korea, so she has probably many stories about how we have been working towards North Korea, and in some ways with North Korea, women even. She is an adjunct professor of the Department of Theology at Sun Moon University, Women's Federation has been leading these activities towards North Korea over 30 years, education, humanitarian initiatives. She sees traditional unificationist programs that should incorporate youth-friendly approaches. Also, she mentioned, actually, in her bio, she didn't speak very much about herself. She also mentioned about the co-president. Women's Federation has over some years held the position of co-president and member of the Korean Unification Commission. So we have been engaged at many different levels there. So Dr. Wajin, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Let me share my screen first. It's midnight here, but I will try my best. Presentation. Yes, this is my presentation. Women Creating Peace and Peace Space on Korea DMZ. That is the title of my presentation. And I realized that meeting Dr. Sung Lee in New York and doing some applying grant project with Carolyn Hansen and Irina and Dr. Anna, those experiences helped me a lot to change my view on unification education in WFWP Korea. So I'm going to introduce my our changes of unification education in Korea. So Beijing plus 30 and divided Korea. I want to raise up this topic is armed conflict. So women and girls are the most impacted by conflict, but are regularly left out of peace building processes. So in Korea, we are living in divided country. So women and girls in Korea are also impacted by conflict, but women in Korea regularly left out of peace building processes. It makes sense a lot in current Korea situation. And also, if we read the UN Security Council resolution on women, as the UN Women, Peace and Security Agenda states, peace building processes require the participation and representation of all those who are affected by conflict. The participation and representation of all those who will live in with the effect of wealth is essential. So all those quotes are saying that we should include women in peace building processes. And that is what Women's Federation Korea is doing. Under the slogan, Women Creating Peace, we have been doing many educational projects for women and youth. We are saying the unification education program. If we review our previous education programs, you see that those male lecturers are giving lecture and women are listening. And here as well, even though this kind of some field trip education program, men is speaking and women are listening. And this as well, women are speaking, but and also if we organize some symposium, women participants are most likely listening position. But especially for last year, Women's Federation Korea changed the way of education. So I'm going to introduce three innovative programs of education, including women's participation. So first, best practice was Women's Unification Lecture Competition. So previously in the unification education programs of Women's Federation Korea, women have primarily participated as learners rather than educators. Moreover, the content of unification education has largely focused on general topics rather than incorporating women's perspective. To address this, Women's Federation Korea organized a unification lecture competition where women both designed the lecture content and served as instructors. This initiative aimed to strengthen women's capacities and ensure their higher inclusion in shaping the vision of a peaceful and unified Korean peninsula. And second best practice was unification wellness education. So traditional education has basically been lecture-based, focused on the realities of national division and the need for security reinforcement. But rather than fostering a positive outlook on unification, these programs often left participants with negative perceptions and increases stress. Recognizing this issue, we introduced a new approach by integrating unification education with wellness experiences. Through activities such as yoga, sound bath, and mindfulness meditation near DMZ area, participants were able to cultivate a more open mindset toward North Korea and the future of unification, fostering a sense of optimism and emotional readiness for reconciliation. Our last best practice was facilitator training program. So we trained the women as a facilitator. As part of South Korean government's implementation plan for the National Action Plan on UNSCR 1325, it has been proposed to develop meaningful models for women's participation, such as training programs for women peace experts and female negotiators to enhance women's involvement in inter-Korean and denuclearization negotiations. In response, Women's Federation Korea has been running a facilitator training program, equipping participants with the skills to speak equally with their organization, resolve conflict harmoniously, and effectively lead discussions. Upon completing the program, participants can obtain the level 2nd certification through an examination. So that was our three innovative approaches, and I tried to find some partners of our new approaches, creating a peace space near DMZ. I'm going to introduce three potential partners in DMZ area in Korea. So first is Korea DMZ Peace and Life Valley in Inje, Gangwon-do. I introduced this case last year, so I will show some pictures of this. This DMZ peace area is located in Inje, Gangwon-do area. This is located in this forest, and they built workshop places, and they have this educational program for young people how to get along with the nature well. The second case is this place is found recently named DMZ Forest. It is a cultural and forest complex within CCG Paju area. If you see the pictures of this area, this is a basically big forest owned by one female entrepreneur. She built two glass greenhouse in this forest, and she is using this inside this greenhouse. We can organize workshops or meeting. This is a map of this place. It's located in Paju area near Kaesong. If you see this map, it is near North Korea, Kaesong area, and then in this CCG, there is a DMZ forest. And last potential partner is a Cheolwon DMZ Ecological Peace Park. This is located here in Cheolwon area. This is actual big park of good natures. This is pictures of this park with many natures, these birds and lakes and mountains. And one interesting story is that there was an article about this place particularly. So Gangwon-do invested a lot of money in this area, but it is not used as much as they expected. So that can be opportunity of NGOs like us to work with in the future. This is the last slide of my presentation. So Women's Federation Korea will work hard towards inclusive peace activities in peace spaces near the DMZ. Our upcoming event will be held in DMZ Forest, and we're gonna organize program with South Koreans and American visitors all together. Thank you for listening my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Wajin, also for the work that you are doing in Korea and for the assessment you made even of this, the situation of the relationship between men and women in terms of leadership and then taking action, making a plan and taking action to see what is a kind of a wholesome and productive solution to shifting the balance so it's more equal between the men and women in terms of leadership. Also, I think that you have found these other like-minded projects. I think that it's a good sign for us, also those of us who are working towards this idea that we have been developing, but that actually we feel excited, not jealous, not competitive, but actually excited about the fact that others have been, again, in a parallel way, been doing similar kind of things, because the ultimate goal, peace, will come much quicker if that is happening all over. So thank you so much, Wajin. Also a good friend of mine. Thank you. So we have a little more than 10 minutes left, and we have brought in a respondent. Actually, it's someone who came with the Korea team to the Beijing Plus 30 Commission on the Status of Women. They had a whole delegation that came, and we held a advocacy training. And she was part of that training, and I got to know her a little bit. And so what we wanted to do was to ask her a question. Her name is Dr. Jong-song Lee. She is a research professional at Sukmyung Women's University in Korea, but also teaching fellow at the University of Birmingham. She got her PhD in development policy and management, the University of Manchester. So she is really like a global citizen. She has been traveling, but she has her roots in Korea and she has her connections in Korea. So what I thought we could ask her to speak to us about is, what about the young generation right now? We had done a survey earlier about this, on this point within this project, but maybe from her perspective as a professor, but also young and engaged with young people, young Korean people, what does she think? Because we know that the idea of reunification is not the top priority for many of them, but wondering what she might think about. It's never good to live with sort of enemies at worst, but at least kind of untrustable, people or neighbors. The Korean people are one people. So how does she think maybe the young people of Korea could be engaged in this kind of activity, in this kind of project? I think she saw now through all these different videos and creative ideas. Maybe she has some idea how we could help to move the young people of today towards, offering their creative talents and their passions towards such a project. So, Dr. Lee.
Firstly, I would like to thank you very much for the truly inspiring presentations. This is my first time actually thinking that I agree with the concept of the reunification, and I'm going to explain you all why. So firstly, I cannot represent the whole population of the younger people in South Korea, but I realized that all these surveys, dialogues, asking younger generations' opinion on reunification, has been asking young people all the wrong questions, because I mean we all know this by heart vaguely, but Korean society has changed very much from a war-ridden country to a very developed country, meaning that generations before us have had different problems than we do now. And then, of course, our identities have changed. So that on the surface, media and government and people alike criticize that young people lack of their interest and humanitarian values towards reunifications. But I believe that younger people now have different way of expressing themselves and different ways of learning. So I suggest that we need to reinterpret younger people's ideas, which I believe you guys did amazingly in the video. Also, I want to point out that younger generation in North Korea have changed as well. So we need to sort of notice what's been really changing. So, for example, I heard from the North Korean refugee the younger generation in North Korea is starting the free market economy. So it's not just South Korea's younger generation changing, and also in academic world. So we do have studies related to North Korea, which I'm also part of, and then the academic have changed from focusing on humanitarian aid to North Korea, to development cooperation to North Korea, and then currently in recent years to humanitarian development peace nexus, which is also a one area of research. So I'm working with the researchers within that field of studies. So it seems that on the surface, that interest on reunification have died out. But if you look at it really close, it's actually evolving in different ways. So that's something I wanted to elaborate. And then I think with all, Korea is one of the first country to digitalize everything in education. So now the generation is not using like conventional way of education. We are all getting digital textbooks and everything, kids these days. So I feel like this is actually a way forward for creating the space that youth actually need and to express their thoughts honestly and safely.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Jung Song. And happy if you were a little bit influenced by what you saw today. Yeah, that's always good. Thank you. I hope we can continue to work on some of these ideas about especially bringing young people into such a project. And because this can't be done, of course, from the outside, this has to be done with Korean people, in fact. So I think we have about 6 minutes. Shall we take a question or two? Sarah, do we have anything in the chat or?
We have, thank you for some great presentations, very educational in the chat. So thank you very much for the attendee who put that in. I did see Lois have her hand up. So if Lois wants to ask a question, but at this point for the attendees, please submit your questions in the chat. Thank you. Lois, you're muted. Lois, you are muted. Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to say that this is such an important path we're on. And if we can do this again, maybe in Geneva, and just continue to show our commitment to this project, I think that's important. It's a catalyst. But also, I remember in the march, and there were women who came in on, I think, on a bus from Pyongyang, and there were a lot of older women. And so working on a cross-generational level, I think it's truly important that the stories and the realities that can be shared across the years, because I remember the women were actually crying and hugging the women of the North and the South. And so using words like education and wellness and the environment, those are concepts that most of us recognize and are not so political. So this is a very good project. It has all the dimensions of women leading for peace, but in a way that can be accepted, hopefully, in the near future.
Thank you, Lois. Maybe to add to that myself, we did organize an event just across the border. We drove through the DMZ and we organized an event that, of course, we had to have the cooperation of the North Korean government. And it was an event on women and women, and I think even we said peace and reconciliation, which almost was surprising that they allowed it at that time. But so we brought almost over 600 women from around the world into this. It was the Kejung Industrial Complex. I think we climbed the Gyeongsong Mountain. Many of us did, some to the top, and during the course of those days that we spent there was a small group of North Korean women leaders who were allowed to come to our events. And one evening we held an evening of reconciliation, and I think even Anna had one picture of that, where we had a huge room full of women with candles, and on the stage we had a few North Korean women and a few women from our global women's network of the Women's Federation, and you could see actually that there were tears, and also the women from North Korea as well. There was something that couldn't be said, but there was something very important that needs to be done, we felt, from that. So yeah, it's okay. I will maybe, do we have one more question, Sarah? If not, I will just ask maybe a couple of our speakers who.
Yes, we do have one more question.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's not actually a question, but I would like to add on some more points. I didn't know how many minutes I had, so I left a few things. But like Caroline mentioned, younger generations do have different priorities. And then younger generation have been criticized that they only view reunification from financial benefit, whether this will benefit them. But I wanted to point out that reunification used to be a personal matter, meaning that you have families in North Korea, but now people receive it more of a international issue of peace building rather than personal issues. So I think there's a difference between these two on how to approach reunification. And secondly, I'm not really sure what grant you guys apply for, but I think this project could somewhat impress people in Korea Foundation. They probably have like art. That's really not my field of study, but they have like visual art grants as well on like Korean culture and stuff. So that's just my message.
Thank you. Let's talk about that later, because that is, of course, very interesting to us. So maybe in our last 1 or 2 minutes, if everyone will forgive me, I would like to go back to Dr. Song-ho Lee, who has been working at this really seems like tirelessly for decades now. And would you have a few closing remarks for us? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I think,
thank you. And I learned a lot from many different perspectives and specific planning, that I fully understand the situation, that there is, obviously big hurdles. As I mentioned, the northern side of DMZ is strongly controlled by North Korea. Southern half is controlled by UN command, headed by US Army General. So obviously some military and political reconciliation should be kind of resolved before our efforts get some fruit. So there are many things, but small things could come first, like a tree planting that I mentioned, and the tourism initiative, and some cultural interaction that many of them, Reverend Moon's Tongil Group has been done in that direction. So we should keep that in mind, regardless of your people's political stance, liberals, conservatives. We have to do something about what North Korea could be changed. So keyword is engage North Korea, rather than distance themselves and like a pariah state. So engage North Korea for interdependence, for peaceful reunification. So in that way, peace zone needed to be interdependent between the two Koreas, leading to harmoniously integrated with some time between North and South Korea. And one more thing is a religious reconciliation. There are some elements of religious elements growing in North Korea, both government-oriented or people-oriented religious movements going on, as far as I know. So somehow I work on that regard too. So religious opening, religious kind of reconciliation could be done in the peace zone turning from Korean DMZ. So thank you, and I hope to discuss more of this issue in the next years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Lee, Dr. Song, Miss Arena, and Dr. Grishting. And thank you so much, Lois, for all the great work that you are doing, sending out important research around the world, always, every day. And to Sarah, our technician, thank you also so much. With that, I will close this meeting, but of course not close the effort that we will continue to make. So thank you.